So what happened with Ireland, I've been there in the Celtic Tiger, they refer to it as the Celtic Tiger era, which is, oh my goodness, it was an eye-opening, what an experience to be there. Money was no object. Money was like all over the place, you know, it was just climbing out of trees.
And the European Union?
Well, I mean, it's a big, long, complicated stories, but I can even remember where the Department of Finance made an estimate of the total income for the government in a particular year, and they made that estimate in September, and by the end of the year, in January, they summed up the books, and they got an extra 2 billion in the last 2-3 months, 2 billion euros.
Sure.
Like, the money was just washing through the place.
Sure.
And so in that world, you could probably think about spreading the wealth kind of far more widely. But we had the most enormous crash. I mean, it was like hitting that bloody brick wall. Wow! Economically, the whole place just fell apart because it was a bubble.
When was the crash?
Starting in 2007, 2008 it absolutely hit, and Ireland had to be bailed out by the European Union and the IMF.
Sure.
And we've had what was called the Troika, which is the IMF, the European Central Bank, and another development arm of the European Commission, European Union. And the Troika, and they came in and they've loaned, I think it's about 80-90 billion euros, which is 1 point something trillion rands to Ireland, because we would have gone to the cash ATMs and there would have been no money. You know, the place was completely broke. Now, that crash was, I mean, I find it absolutely fascinating to have lived through both periods and worked through both periods. The crash was traumatic because salaries went down, the value of houses dropped 50 to 60%
Sure.
down. You know, that's dropped, gone, like mine. Sitting there with a house which, according to the municipality, is valued at less than 100,000 euros, and it was 350,000. So it varies. Some places drop more than 50-60%. So the value of personal properties absolutely plummeted. I think of it, the crash, as like we all wired up to the electric grid system, and you know, somebody flipped a switch, and every single person in the whole country had this massive shock going through them. It was traumatic for the society and for people. Like last year, my wife lost her job. My daughter in Ireland, the year before that, her husband lost his job. He still hasn't got a job. So that's all over the place. That's kind of what was going on. So if I just finish this little story. So coming back to Mike's point, so this is a long digression to get to Mike's point, but during the Celtic Tiger era, you could think about, you know, sanitation systems for little bloody villages, which are completely inefficient to do anything there. You could think of doing all that kind of stuff. A crash came, and there's a level of realism in the system which is very different from the previous era. And you know, people realize we actually haven't got the money anymore, and we've got to spend it wisely, we've got to spend it more efficiently, and so much so that there's actually now a government department called Public Expenditure and Reform, because we have to reform the way government works to get efficiencies and economies into the system, which nobody even worried about them before. There's really little money everywhere.
Come back to my question, is that would tend to take the localism out of it and to concentrate on where
there's a hope and hell that the investment will actually do something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the general kind of feeling now, and it's come out of the fact that we realise, that the whole society realised we haven't got the resources that we thought we had, and we've got to be much more effective and efficient in the allocation of those resources. In a nutshell, that's what's going on. And that will play itself out into the planning system. I mean, it already is, and I see it playing itself out. So, again, it's an example of these broad social, economic, political trends playing themselves out into the planning system and the way it works. So, yeah, sorry, you had a...
kind of similar, maybe. Something that I've noticed about in planning that's developed is this one of saying, let's try and get everybody up to the same level in terms of access to services, access to everything. And so, what's starting to happen in places like Hillcrest changed completely in character. It used to be a city, village outside the city. That's now become much more urbanized. Same things happen in Pietermaritzburg, Hilton area. Hilton is developing quite big. If rights are granted there, are taken up. Hilton won't be a village anymore. It's going to be more like what its beginning say was. How it's grown quite a bit. And I've got a bit of a concern about that, because to me, we're just talking about things to be split evenly, or resources permit or not. And the same thing that we've got the casino licenses, right? They draw 5 very equal sized circles fitted in the province, and I said that is therefore we look for in the middle of that circle for a place to have a casino. And to me, that's a very dangerous approach to do, because to me, the South Coast shouldn't look like the North Coast. So casino licenses maybe we should be free on the South Coast and none on the North Coast. And maybe there should be a village and a city. Maybe you shouldn't try and turn the village into another city, because we're starting to lose things. Because even though there's not access to every manageable service in a small village, there are other things that you lose. You don't only gain, you lose something in the process as well. And I'm very concerned about planning that try and make everything the same. And you don't know if you're in Stellenbosch or if you're in whatever, because it pretty much looks muchness. And I've got a concern about that. And I was wondering if Ireland shares that concern, or if they are more worried about trying to get everybody access and trying to get everybody the same service. I think in England they're a little bit more aware of that, and they would quite intentionally not develop certain places, because they're saying that place has that particular feel, that particular character, that particular service certainly you won't get there, but the other things you only get there that you won't find in London. And so therefore they serve different markets, different purposes. And then also, I think linked to that, from a financial point of view, the risk of overcapitalising, because that kind of thing happened in Jeffreys Bay. Jeffreys Bay, well-known surf sport, internationally renowned. People went there, then tourism starts to happen. It overdevelops. People actually went there because it was a small little place in surfing. They don't want to go there anymore, so they moved away. The new group that's moving in, good economic growth in South Africa as well, sort of a bubble, not on that grand scale, but the same sort of thing. And property in Jeffreys Bay is actually not that expensive, considering that it's at one of the most incredible places on the coast. But because it's just complete oversupply, 70 houses for sale, despite you can't maintain infrastructure. So the real comment there is this diversity in planning versus let's get everybody equal. How do one balance it, and how is it balanced in Ireland at the national level? Maybe that's in the question.
Okay, yeah.
Just on Gerrit's question, could it then not be the reason why Ireland focuses locally to address those issues, to say, look, if we want to remain a village, we will remain a village. Yes, we still want to benefit from all the resources that everyone else is benefiting from, but in terms of how we're going to develop this area locally, this is how we are prepared to have our area developed, rather than in a different way that then transforms the entire area from being a village to then become a much more urbanized and probably part of the city. Could that then not be the reason why they focus locally instead?
There's the perspective of the planners, the technical people like us. We're all technical kind of people. And the technical people will, all of them recognize the fact that you can't spread everything all over. You really, it's just, it's kind of cuckoo.
But even if you can, you shouldn't.
No, if you, well, you so much can't that it's hardly, in a sense, a debate. However, from the political side, there's a strong pressure to make things much more even and spread the wealth and the benefits. Egalitarian. In fact, my feeling is it's stronger there than it is here.
Sure.
The welfare system that they have there is a symptom of the fact that there's this strong feeling that nobody must really lose out, and you've at least got to have everybody at this particular level, and that's very powerful. It's a very powerful set of values sitting out there in the society. Those values then gets translated into a spatial context, but then you hit the reality. I mean, you can actually have a welfare system which says, I don't care where you live. If you're a disabled single mother or something, you get whatever. It doesn't matter where you are, you get it. So you can actually have a distribution system fairly easily in the socio-economic kind of way. Spatially, you can't. You just can't do it. It's just completely unrealistic. But the pressure from the political side of things is to spread. So you get this kind of tension going on. So what you might get is in a county development plan a hierarchy of urban places, and then there's some wording. Normally in a hierarchy what you would say is we will allocate our resources mainly to the higher levels, and then the next, and we'll at least do something in the bottom.
Sort of a proportional distribution.
Yeah, to the higher levels. So you get the hierarchy sitting there, but then elsewhere in the plan, the wording fudges it so that there's scope to play games with where the resources actually get allocated. And that will be a response to the political imperative to have more evenness and more spread and all that kind of stuff. So the planning system, in an obvious way, gives a response with a hierarchy, with an allocation, but in reality it's fudged so that there's a lot of scope to play games.
What they say and what they do are two different things.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just to give you an example, in the Celtic Tiger era, which is when we just had so much money, it was washing over all of us. What was going on, for example, was we call it overzoning, particularly residential. There was, like the one town, I suppose it's got 25, 30,000 people. It had over 1,000 hectares of zoned residential land. The actual need in terms of growth over the next 9 years was 50 hectares. So what was going on is this zoning of residential land all over the place. Because what then happened is the landowners would say, I've got residential zoning, they'll go off to the bank, they would get a loan at like almost 0% interest rate, and then they would invest it in, say, another house somewhere, because the price of all these properties is going to go up, and then I will just flip that, sell that house again in 2 years' time, and make a whole lot of money. So the banking system, the planning system, the political system were all conniving in a sense together to create this bubble that we had. The crash came, and as I said, you weren't here, but I say it was quite traumatic actually. The crash came, and there was a level of realism that came into the system.